Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I've got Josh Yohe with the Athletic and comedian Joe Bartnick alongside. And gentlemen, we titled this one like, seems like we're taking a shot here at Ovi. We're not taking a shot at Ovi on his great day, so I don't want anyone to think that. But good Lord, Sidney Crosby is on another level right now. And we could go on and on about that. There's the game tonight with the Chicago Blackhawks. We can talk a little bit about that. There's a couple things to talk about, players in particular. But first and foremost, Sidney Crosby has a hat trick yesterday against the Dallas Stars. Just took over the game. And in general, I loved seeing that tic-tac-toe between Rusty and McGroarty and Sid, give me that all day. Put that right into my veins, as the kids say. So how did you guys feel about Sir Sidney yesterday?
Yeah, it was an incredible performance. And even, with his scoring streak coming to an end today, I actually thought he looked a little tired today for the first time, really, since the Four Nations break. He's played a ton of hockey, so it would be perfectly reasonable if that were the case. Even with the streak ending today, he's got 20 points in his last 13 games. And aside from the numbers, guys, just watching him play right now, there is a crispness, a dominance to his game that is a little next level from what we've seen from him even during most of the season when he's been perfectly fine for his standards. He's playing out of his mind. I always say I think it's muscle memory with him. When the playoffs are close, I just think he turns things up a notch. I don't think he knows any other way. There has not been a player in the league better than him the last 2 months. You can throw anybody at me you want. I'm not saying he's the best player in the world, but in the last 2 months, he has been. Like he's been that dominant, even though he's playing on a bad team and he knows he's not making the playoffs, which became official tonight. To me, it's a joy watching him play. He's going to go over 90 points again. The level of play that we're seeing, Joe, he's still spectacular. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, about Kyle Dubas this summer? Even though he's rebuilding and you don't want to rush that, there's got to be a part of Dubas that's saying, you know what? This guy is still so great. Maybe he will be for 2 or 3 more years. Maybe I need to expedite things a little bit and give this guy a real chance in the playoffs sooner rather than later.
Well, I think that's a definite path back to the playoffs. It can be achieved this summer. I think it just takes about 2 or 3 players, and we'll have all summer to talk about that, Josh. Yeah. I think obviously Sid's performance yesterday was incredible. I loved every second of it. Me and you both picked the Stars to win the West. Now it might be a little shaky, but they basically went into Dallas, who had everything to gain to try to catch Winnipeg, and they basically stomped them. It was an incredible game. You saw the high-end talent that the Penguins do have, and Jari played well. I thought, today was just such a disappointment. But you think about it, it's the end of a back-to-back. They know they're out of it. They had just an emotional game. They had 2 very emotional games, so I don't really blame them. And I thought, a couple things fall their way, maybe penalty calls, and just basically horrible back checking by a couple of defensemen who we name every segment. And it may have ended up differently, but I just think when you look at this road trip as a whole, it's got to be positive. St. Louis, hottest team in the NHL, since Christmas. They go in there and almost steal a point and almost steal a victory. They stole a loser point and could have won in overtime, except for maybe a horrible call, according to some people. They stomped Dallas. If you just said they come out with 3 or 6 points, you would have thought they got the loser point with the Blazers, got crushed by Dallas and beat the hell out of Chicago. But that's not what happened, Josh. That's why they play the games.
No, I just think they ran out of gas today. They looked tired to me. I didn't think they played poorly today. It was just kind of a shit game. There was just nothing going on for either team. Today was one of those games where you are reminded that the NHL schedule is too long. There's probably too many games in the regular season. I just thought both teams were tired. We're going through the motions a little bit. First time I thought Crosby really looked a little fatigued and a little off his game in months, quite honestly. I guess he was due for a quiet game. He is human after all. But no, you're right, Joe. That game they played in Dallas yesterday, not only did they beat the Stars 5-3, which in and of itself is good, but they dominated that game.
That's what I'm saying.
They were by far the better team. It wasn't even close. They made Dallas look really unimpressive. And Dallas had won 7 games in a row going into that game. They weren't The Stars were not playing poorly by any stretch entering that game, and the Penguins just took it to them all day. And I was thinking about you seeing Casey DeSmith, giving up 4 goals. I know you enjoyed that one, Joe. I know he's never been a favorite of yours.
No, and of course Casey couldn't win the big game to secure his 2 points. And of course, when he's just ready to get injured, so he's not ready for the playoffs to start. So if anything does happen to the goaltender, to Ottinger, he won't be available. They'll be looking for the third goaltender in Austin.
Louis Domingue.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess we talked on our post game wrap up, which was fun. Thanks to everyone who listened live. But I was so impressed with the St. Louis Blues game as well. And what I think is nice the last 3 games is that Koivunen and McGroarty have not fallen off. It doesn't seem like the adrenaline is wasted. If anything, I think they played an even more solid game than almost any of the other Penguins.
And what did you think, Josh, tonight of Joe of Koivunen and Malkin together? I thought they showed a pretty good chemistry for not playing a whole lot together because Malkin just came back. But both of those guys were McGroarty and Malkin fitting right in, or McGroarty and Koivunen fitting right in with 2 legends.
I will answer that question, and then I'll let Josh speak. I think that McGroarty was the best player on his line tonight, and that's saying something. And I'm not just trying to blow up the kid. I mean, he had some very nice checks. I thought his back checking was great. He broke up a couple plays. It was like, wow, that is impressive. He was laying the body. He was everywhere. I mean, I think Sid looked a little tired, and Rust had a couple of his rusty moves, but in general, he was kind of invisible. I'm always impressed with Koivunen's speed. His first step, he gets the pucks where it's like, oh, he's not going to get there, and bam, he is on it. And I think he has some pretty good chemistry already. To me, it looks like that Raquel is having more trouble fitting in with those guys. And this is not a knock on Raquel whatsoever. It just almost seems like he's not fitting in quite as well with those guys, but I know it's going to come.
Well, Rax was put in a tough spot too, because he was just humming, playing with Crosby and Rust, and all of a sudden he had to play center for a couple of games. Kind of a tough spot to put him in. He at least buried one today on the power play. Koivunen, boy, you guys see the games. I was fortunate enough to be at practice in Dallas on Friday, and that's when they put Koivunen on the top power play for the first time. And the power play always stinks in practice. I don't know why. Probably because the penalty killers, they see it all the time, so they know what's going to happen. They almost never score on the power play in practice, believe it or not. They put Koivunen on the top power play. He immediately, on the very first power play, scores on a wrist shot from the bumper position. And then on the second power play, when they run another drill, Sid sets him up for another goal. First 2 attempts that they score on the power play, he scores both goals. He has a feel for the power play. It was really obvious to me. His hockey IQ is so high. He really fits in on the power play. I thought he was fine today. It'll take some time. He's barely had practice time with Malkin, so it'll take some getting used to. I thought he was good. And to echo what Joe said, I thought Rucker McGroarty was the Penguins' best player today. I thought he was outstanding. He is growing on me more and more. I got to be honest with you. I didn't want to make a big deal about it. He's 20 years old. I wasn't that impressed with him in training camp. I was like, he's got a lot of work to do. He looked a little slow. I just wasn't that impressed. I thought he was okay. He is a way different player now. And I like everything about his game and his defensive work. He's already one of their 2 or 3 best defensive forwards. Now, that's a pretty low bar. But, his back checking, his awareness in the defensive zone, the intelligent plays that he makes, you notice it because hardly anyone else on this team does those things. He does all the little things, and he does them so well. And in the offensive zone, he passes the puck better than I realized. Much like Koivunen, he has that really high hockey IQ. And after the game in Dallas, I literally had 3 people in the organization text me within a half an hour after the game had ended. And all 3 of them were like, wow, Rucker, he's really good. He's better than I realized. He's ahead of the curve. And today I thought he was maybe even better. He's getting better each game. I'm telling you that this kid's a really, really good player. And I even though it's in the early stages, I really think he and Koivunen both look like legitimate good NHL players to me already.
I absolutely agree with you, Josh. And I think my point with Kovanen and Raquel is it just seems like Kovanen's comfortable kind of playing the weave and playing off of Gino. It's almost like it's almost like three's a crowd. Like they have to learn how to kind of work Raquel in a little bit. Like even he's kind of finding his way with those guys, almost. But I want to make a point that I don't know if it's purposely or not. Well, first of all, Kovanen looked great on the power play. He didn't the primary assist. But I think it's also genius that they're both getting chances to play with the two legends. Like, so McGroarty's on the second power play, so that's his chance to play with Gino. And Kovanen's on the top play, that's his chance to play with Sid. So even if it's not purposely done that way, it works out that way.
No, it really does. That's a great point, and I like it. And I think it's interesting. Kyle Dubas did a podcast earlier this week. And I'm not going to get into what all he said because that's better for summer programming. But he did mention in the offseason that his priorities are making the left side of the blue line better and getting better down the middle behind Sid and Gino. Fair enough. You'll notice he didn't mention anything about wingers. I think that's because he knows what he has in McGroarty and Koivunen. And he knows, like, at worst, one of them will be, on the third line moving forward, even when they get good. And at least one of them, maybe both, will be in the top six. And that's really encouraging when you still have Raquel and Russ. All of a sudden, the situation on the wing is looking pretty good. And, I'm being picky with line combinations because you're going to see mixing and matching the rest of the year and in training camp next year. I'm not so sure the way things are right now that I wouldn't have Russ playing with Malkin and Koivunen, just because Rusty is so good at using his straight line speed to disrupt things on the forecheck and to play the straight line game, whereas Koivunen and Gino could do the east-west thing a little bit more, the weave game a little more, and that would put Sid and Raquel back together, and they're both so smart, and Rucker's so smart, they're going to figure out how to play with him. So just a thought. Well, it doesn't really matter because they've been effective. But that's the biggest takeaway from this road trip, other than Sid's game in Dallas, which of course was sensational to see. These two young kids look like the real deal to me, and there's just a different energy around the Penguins because of them. And Wilkes-Barre, incidentally, has really struggled, by the way, in their last couple of games without them. Like, I think that just tells you how good these kids are.
Well, they had to be dominating us because look how great they're playing for us right now. And that's what I think, even though it's kind of old news because we did it on our post-game podcast, but I think that's what was the sour moment about losing to the Bluesers, and the loser point is just the fact that we just couldn't have that big Rutger moment of like the celebration and getting the helmet, because it was such a big moment, that game tying goal. It was phenomenal. But I don't know if you could see, Josh, you were talking, but a great listener, Isaac, just basically echoed what you said. I don't know if he could type faster than you could talk, or he actually, or he's a mentalist. But he said the exact same thing.
Account. Yeah, it might be Josh's burner account. It popped up, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, I should put that up. That he thinks we should swap Rax and Rusty, and then you go into it. So I was like, oh, perfect.
Oh, me and Isaac must be my cousin or something. But thank you, thank you for. No, I mean, I don't know. They've got plenty of time to experiment with those six guys moving forward. Of course, the beauty of Rusty is you can put him in any role and he will be effective. I've always liked Rusty with Gino every bit as much as I like him with Sid, however.
I love him with Gino.
Yeah, I always
well, I mean, anytime Sid's even been remotely dinged, because it hasn't been much since the puck to the face years ago. Anytime Gino played with Rusty and Snake, it was always almost as effective.
Yeah. Now we should mention too, Rusty's at 28, which ties his career high, and Raquel now has 34 goals, which ties his career high. 87's aware of that, so he'll be making sure to take care of them in the next couple of games so that they both reach career highs. And if Russ can get to 30, Raquel 35 plus, Sid's at 30 now. That's the Penguins have a lot of issues. Those three guys, however, have done the job and then some. And maybe they'll still play at this level, those three guys, for 2 or 3 more years. I think it's completely possible, and that can only help the Penguins in their little rebuilding process here.
I mean, it just goes to show how old we're getting, Josh. I remember his first couple goals, Rusty, and now he came up with 200. And I remember when he wouldn't even pass. Remember that?
I always tell the story. The first time Rust ever played with Sid, it was when the whole team had the mumps, I think, right around that time. It was like 2014, I think.
Yep.
And Sid literally like had Rusty removed from the first line at the first intermission because Rusty wouldn't give him the puck. Great players, like Sid's hardly selfish or a prima donna, but great players like the puck. And if you're not going to get them the puck, that's a problem. And Rusty at that time was just a fast guy who would shoot the puck a lot. And so in a bottom six role, yes, he was obviously effective. But I never thought back then that he would evolve into this kind of a player. Like his whole game, Joe, the way he passes the puck now, the way he sees the ice, it's unbelievable.
Oh, well, and two quick points. One, that's why it was so shocking when he dished to Sid in that overtime game against in Washington. It was maybe not overtime, but that huge goal he passed. The whole world was shocked he passed the puck. It eked everybody out. But the point is, I was listening to Mets in the old 2-9er, and they were talking or I heard them recapping it, and they said who in the last 10 15 years has done everything as well as Brian Rust. And as soon as they said that, the first thing that popped into my mind, well, only Chris Kunitz. And if you think about it, when I mentioned and Phil Bourque and Matt's, when he's in the same class as Chris Kunitz, I mean, that's a hell of a compliment, because I think Chris Kunitz is maybe the most underrated, greatest Penguin ever.
He's the most underrated player in Penguins history, probably. He is a giant in Penguins history. I just saw Kunitz actually outside the Penguins locker room after the game tonight. He's here in Chicago. He came over to say hi to Sid and Gino and Chris Letang.
Still a sin. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's still a sin that he was a black. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's still a sin.
Should have been.
Never should have let him go, even though he was on the decline. There was a role for Chris Kunitz on the fourth line somewhere. No doubt. And Kunitz, when we think of Kunitz, yeah, he scored big goals and he was good with Sid and he was physical and would run people. But there was also a skill level to his game. Like he would make those little passes in the neutral zone to Sid. He knew how to spring them with speed, little stuff like that. And Rust is like that too. Like Rust has a skill level that is so much higher than I ever realized. And he's just worked at it. I really think it's the rare example of a player who just worked himself into a better player year after year. He keeps getting better. And it got me to thinking about the Penguins, even though their third and fourth lines are nothing special, like their forwards are so good. If their blue line and goaltending wasn't awful, like if it was only average or maybe even below average, they actually might be a playoff team. Like that's how good that those top forwards still are. And that's just how much they've been betrayed by the guys on the blue line and between the pipes. They just give up so many goals. It's hard to keep up. But, man, they still have some good players. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that, Josh, is that, like, little board plays, I call them, the little board plays that chip the puck off the wall, the little touch passes in the neutral zone. They're only apparent when your team can't do them. When it was Duper and Dupuis, and guys and Fedotenko, all the guys that could work the wall and just do the chip play up and get out. You never think about it. But then when you get a bunch of slugs that can't do it, you're like, Jesus Christ, we just can't get the puck out. And why can't we get the puck up the wall?
Yeah. It's brutal to watch.
That is literally what I love. One of the things I love most about McGroarty is he makes those plays. McGroarty makes those plays along the wall.
And that's my biggest problem with somebody like Phil Tomasino, who wasn't in the lineup today. He is incapable of making those kinds of plays. He can score some slick highlight reel goals, but the little plays like that's where he struggles so much. I guarantee you that's where he just lost Barry Trotz, who didn't want him anymore, stuff like that. And you're right, McGroarty is so advanced. Like McGroarty is advanced in ways that 21-year-olds usually aren't. Usually at that age, you can see the skill level, but it's stuff like that takes a while to mature in their games. At Rucker, like that stuff comes naturally to him.
Well, do you also think because, and now take it easy, Corey, do you also think it's because he went to Michigan and they're a Class A institution for hockey and he learned how to play the right way for 4 years? Or 3 years, however long he stayed there.
Maybe.
No, it's almost like someone that went to Duke or North Carolina or Connecticut back in the day for basketball.
No, he plays the game like he's been coached awfully well.
That's what I mean.
And I don't know how much of it is just natural or how much of it is good coaching. It's probably both. But you just don't usually see young players who are that advanced at the little things. That's like the one that comes to mind is always Jordan Stahl. Like when Jordan was 18, like he just understood defensive concepts and had that IQ in the defensive zone that you just don't usually see from teenagers. And Rucker, who's a little older than Jordan was when he came into the league, but he clearly has those things. So even if Rucker's not scoring a ton, he's going to help you win in so many different ways.
You know who reminds me too of it? It reminds me of, I was just gonna say, it reminds me of Jake Gensel being like a coach's kid. You know, he wasn't like a defensive whiz, but he did everything right. You know what
exactly.
I mean? You know.
Well, you know who else plays the wall very well is Connor Dewars, the rusty nail. I think he plays a good board game as well, which I respect. You know what's funny too is I know it sounds like I'm blowing this guy every week, but Imama was good at that stuff too. And that's the little things that I always picked up on. Like he did the little thing. He used to get the puck out.
No, you're right.
Which is all I ask you guys on the third and fourth. Get the puck out. Signs of a bad team, they can't get the puck out.
Yeah, and Joe, I think we notice it more on this team because they have so many goddamn guys who can't do that. Like when you see somebody like Rucker come along, does all the little things right, it's like, oh yeah, like look at that. They actually have somebody like makes simple plays. Like, gee, they're winning 3-2 with 5 minutes left. He just the red line and got the puck deep. Like, the Penguins for whatever reason don't like to do that kind of stuff. But Rucker just, for the lack of a better term, he plays the game the right way. And I also think he's going to score a lot of goals and be a very productive offensive player. I think he's going to score 20, 25 goals, just like Chris Kunitz. Even though he's not the physical menace that Kunitz was, he might be a little more right, but he's more talented and he's bigger. And like he could be a Kunitz plus kind of player. I really believe that, and I don't mean that as like I mean that as a compliment. I'm a big Chris Kunitz fan, and if he can become that kind of a player, oh man, that's a big deal.
If he's 80% to 80 to 90% Chris Kunitz, he's a great number one draft pick.
I'll sign for that in blood right now.
Yeah. I mean, and and another Michigan guy, Corey, take it easy. I mean, it's taken Mr. Nyes a couple years to really grow into his body and understand what it can do. And I mean, this kid's only played like 6 games. Right. I mean, I think it's phenomenal. And just think if they didn't bring him. I mean, thank God, Dubas. Thank you. What would we be talking about if we didn't have him and Billy? I mean, oh my God, it's all the excitement.
Well, it's the first hope we've had in years. Yeah.
No, and trust me, every time when I write my post-game articles, like, oh man, I got 2 new guys to talk about. I don't have to talk about Kevin Hayes anymore if I don't want to. This is great. Like, I don't have to talk about Erik Karlsson screwing up on 2-on-1s. Well, I still have time to talk about that, but I mean, but not. And by the way, I should mention again, like, every time, sometimes there's just the odd line change and they're out there together, or in this case, it was the second power play. When Karlsson and Letang are on the ice together, it's a disaster every time. They let a guy slip. I forget who it was. Somebody slipped through them in the first period and got a breakaway out of it. And then in the second period, Karlsson with a terrible read. Letang plays the 2-on-1 like a 6-year-old, like just tries to steal the puck instead of taking away the pass like he's supposed to. And it ends up in the back of the net for the first goal. Those two they're a major problem right now. And I think Dubas is doing a disservice if he doesn't try to move one of them this offseason. If you bring both of them back next year, I'm telling you, it's just going to be more and more of the same.
I'm literally going against what I said last podcast on 2 different levels. One, I think Karlsson has to go even more than Letang now. And 2, I think if you have to buy him out, which I'm kind of vehemently opposed to, I think you almost have to. Because today was one thing. I thought his way he played the 2-on-1, or where it turned into a 2-on-none against Dallas, was like, I didn't understand it, Corey. Like, he literally, like, the guy had it was like, if he just goes back 2 steps, it's like, okay, he can play it. He just stepped up to like, okay, let's just like end this now. Let's see what happens. It's like he just gives up before he like gives up at the opposing blue line.
It's just,
which what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's a real problem with. I mean, I don't know what that's actually one of my notes here was to say, like, who's got to go? Because Joe, like, we literally were sitting there, we're going like, I think you keep AK around, but now I'm like, at least Letang fits in, and like with the culture a little more maybe, but but I don't know. And then I will say, Joe, I don't know if you were listening to the radio. I was listening to the radio at the time of the first goal, and Borky was beside himself. Like I was telling Josh before you joined, he went back to it like 2 minutes later. Like the play had gone on, other things had happened, and he was like, "I'm just so sorry, Joe." And he just like starts going. And I can't imagine there was too many happy people in the Penguin organization watching that. And
no, I mean, listen, both of them. Letang's contract is a problem. Like to be paying him $6.1 million for 3 more years, because a lot of his problems like are starting to become physical. Like he's always been good for some brain cramps, right? But you can just see he doesn't move the way he did even a year ago, and he's going to be 38 in a couple of weeks. So that's a problem. But I think the single biggest thing they need to do this offseason is try to rid themselves of Erik Karlsson. And I know there are people out there who, well, Erik helps you offensively, but I don't care. You're never going to win with him. I truly believe that at this point. He's never going to change the way he plays. He thinks there's nothing wrong with how he plays the game. Yeah, I really believe that. I guess I can almost admire that kind of self-confidence on some level. He's not helping. He makes just, hockey 101 blunders more than any player I've ever seen, let alone a future Hall of Fame player. And he's not going to change. He is who he is. And I think he's more movable than Letang. First of all, Chris has the no trade clause, but I don't know how many teams out there are, all right, I'll give Chris, 3 years, another $18.5 million. He's out. Okay. I don't know about that. Karlsson, you might have to retain a little bit of money. But I know for a fact there are teams out there that would be interested in him. Maybe you wouldn't get a whole lot in return, but that's okay. He's not a winning hockey player. You don't want young players around him. I just think he's become a huge problem.
Yeah, and that's why you have 30 draft picks to throw a couple, however many you need to use to get rid of them. Because like you said originally on the top of the show, Josh, when you look at our forwards, and a couple guys here and there, a couple of fourth liners here and there, maybe a little better. Well, anyone's better than Kevin Hayes, but maybe a couple of young guys. Basically the two guys that the Rangers picked up. If we would have Saucy, Susie, and the Borden guy instead of Letang and Karlsson, we'd probably make the playoffs this year from day one.
No, you might be right.
And those are just two mediocre 3-4 guys, just guys that play physical, clear the crease, and move the puck out.
Right. That's all. And Letang and Karlsson, I'm not saying they're the only problems on this team. We know goaltending has been a huge issue. And frankly, the rest of the blue line just stinks. But if those are your 2 highest paid defensemen, like, I'm sorry. That's just killing the Penguins right now. It's every game with these two. Like what percentage in the last 2 weeks of the goals against have been one of those 2 guys? Like we're probably talking 60 to 70%. It's just simple mistakes that they're making constantly. They're making Ryan Graves level mistakes. That's a real problem when you're paying these guys what you're paying them. And I understand that I've heard people say, oh, why doesn't Sully bench them? Well, who the hell else do you want them to play? I mean, at least they're capable of giving you big minutes. They're not going to get tired or anything. That's great. Some guys just, like Ian Cole once told me, like I can't play 25 minutes a night. I literally can't. Like most guys, that's the thing about Chris, even if he's on a bad game, like he can play that every night and not get tired. But the mental errors that those two make, I've never seen anything like it for 2 great players.
Well, no playoff team lists their 3 best defensemen as Ryan Shea, Connor Timmins, and Matt Grzelcyk.
Jesus. Yep. Think about what you just said there. Yeah,
I know. Well, okay. Well, I mean, I wanted Brunick. I love Brunicki better. I wanted Brunicki an 8-game tryout and stay, and I think Pickering looked better than all of them. So so it's like look better than 5 of the guys he was up here in the regular season. So you had those 2. You get rid of Graves and Karlsson. Okay, there's a better defense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I just
because when you look at it, is indefensible as Jari's play is half the time. The other half he's okay. And it's the defense that lets him down completely.
Well, and I'm not defending Jari or Nedeljkovic because they not been good this year at all. But I do wonder, like, I don't know how to gauge those two, because this is a team, like no team in the league gives more grade A chances than this team. Okay. So you can look at it statistically, but also like that wears on a goaltender. Like eventually there's a psychological ramification there. Like did John Gibson like just kind of age poorly, or did years of playing behind a really shitty defensive team just take a toll on him? Like that does happen to goalies quite often. So I think that's something you need to consider moving forward.
If Marty Brodeur had to play in front of this defense, he would have hung himself in 98.
Or at least ask for a trade, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Christ, that's
Would have ended up in St. Louis a lot sooner.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, so I don't know how to gauge Jari and the Dutch, because the degree of difficulty they have to deal with, like it's not like other goalies have to deal with this kind of play every night in front of them. So that makes it, I think, a lot harder for Mike Sullivan and Kyle Dubas to assess this team moving forward. Like, how do you assess your goalies? Like, yeah, they played like crap, no question, but would any goaltender have decent numbers behind this group? I'm not so sure that he would.
Yeah, I mean, vintage 86 Patrick Waugh would have a tough time in front of he would have to be Waugh of 86. He couldn't even be Avalanche Waugh. He'd have to be rookie Waugh to put this team in the playoffs, because I mean Ned made 5 or 6 10 bell saves, and he still let up 3 because of all the chances they had.
Right. And both goals were basically breakaways.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
They've been screwed up the one. Letang and Carlson on the other, and Ned even said after the game, "Well, I gave up 2 goals on breakaways. I wish I could have just, 1 out of 2. We might have gone to overtime." So, and he wasn't taking a shot at anyone; he was just being honest. But think about what he said there. Like all those breakaways we gave up. Most teams don't give up multiple breakaways every game.
There was like 1 or 2 other breakaways too in the game.
Yes,
it was like 4 breakaways in a game. Like that's insane.
It's unfortunately that's just what they do.
It gets to the question I have of, is it just that the wrong players are trying to play the system? You know what I mean? That's why I'm really planning on tuning in to the AHL playoffs a lot, because I know that the players are playing the system that they want down in Wilkes-Barre. I want to see that defense be solidified. You know what I mean? Because it's just, you're just watching these guys up here and you're like, this is a square peg in a round hole. Everything is going wrong. Either Sullivan is a moron and he's telling these guys to pinch and they shouldn't, or it's just the wrong guys. So I don't know. It's a mess. It's a big problem. It's the biggest problem to fix this summer.
I think they're pinching less this year, though. I think the pitching every time and sending in Shea and sending in Graves and other guys that we were like, they have no offensive talent whatsoever. They're by the goal line. What are you doing? I think that problem has kind of been alleviated. I think it really just comes down, not even so much Letang. I think his problems aren't even so much pinching, is all his stupid mental errors and how he just can't move like he used to. I think Carlson is the number one culprit. And I think not even a culprit as far as when he's pinching. It's when he loses the pinch, either his defensive effort or his defensive, the geometry of the angles he's taking are like, Jesus Christ, I can tell you're not going to make the play. He'll make a lucky swing with his stick. Like, you're not Sidney Crosby. You don't have the hand-eye coordination to bat a sauce pass.
Well, and we've seen 2 games in a row now where Letang and Carlson, instead of just skating, are trying to knock the puck out of midair like playing baseball. It's just maddening. It's just terrible hockey. I don't know why they think it's okay to play like that. Like Carlson in St. Louis, of course, where you're trying to knock the puck out of midair. Maybe start skating when you see a man's behind you. And then in Dallas, the guy gets behind him. I think was that their first goal. And instead of turning around and skating, he's just doing his crossovers. Going back in slow motion, letting him go around him. Like what are you doing? It's unbelievable to watch every game. And I can't wait to see what happens this summer, because I'm sorry, if you bring both of them back, you think they're going to play any better? You think they're going to change?
Yeah,
I don't
think so.
But I think like a slow, more aged Letang at $6 million is better than Carlson right now.
I agree.
And that's saying something.
Yeah. That really highlights the state of the Penguins defense.
Yeah, because like even slower, less pinching. Just I think because Carlson's mistakes are just so glaring and so defeating that it's almost like I'm used to Letang's mistakes. It's been 20 years now.
Numb to it at this point.
Yeah, like he can play with Graves, and it doesn't bother.
And even
me
though Letang has not been good in his own zone this year, he's at least capable of it. Like he's actually a pretty good one-on-one defender when his mind is right. He's so strong on his skate. He just does things. Whereas Carlson, you just know he can't help you in that area at all. And I don't think Carlson's offensive work has been nearly enough to make up for all that he lacks in other facets of the game. And you just put it all together. And given that I do think he's more tradable than Letang, I think that has to be priority number one for Mr. Dubas come this summer. I truly believe that.
Because I also think too that it kind of we were pleased with Letang's up until maybe Christmas, right? Martin Luther King Day. So maybe he really just needs the summer. How Sully sat down Gino and said, "Hey, cut the penalties out and let's try to play a little more responsible." And he did. Yeah. Maybe it's the middle of the season. He hasn't seen it like you can't see the trees from the forest or whatever that quote means. Maybe he needs a summer of being like, "Hey, Chris, like you're just not fast anymore."
Right.
You just can't play. Got to play. And maybe it'll get through because you never thought it would get through Gino's head, but it did.
And it can be done. I mean, listen, I always go back to the 2017 Stanley Cup run when the Penguins won that cup with just 6 average defensemen playing intelligent hockey. Without Letang, like they were just playing safe hockey basically. And what do you know? It worked. And when you have great forwards. That kind of style can still be okay. You don't need every defenseman to play like he's Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes or Erik Karlsson. That's not always necessary. I'm not saying offensive defensemen and talented guys like that don't help you. Of course they do. But there's something to be said for just playing conservative, safe hockey. And that seems to be what Mike Sullivan wants. He talks about it a lot. Take care of your own zone first because the offense will come with the talent that we have. But his team clearly, there's something lost in the message there because his team very seldom wants to play that way.
I will say that I don't want to besmirch Ron Hainsey, Bobby Orr with his coast to coast. Those were not average defensemen. He turned into Bobby Orr on one shift in that game 5 against the Nashville. So that was something else. But go ahead, Joe.
No, and they had a few better than just they had some definitely like what they had. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the bottom line is though, it's like how Vegas was, but then they had Fleury. It's like if you have if you have 4 second lines and a Hall of Fame goaltender, you're going to be a good team.
That's right.
The same way as they had Murray hot and they had 6, 2, 3, the number 2 to 4 defensemen. That's perfect. Yeah. They didn't have any number 1s, but they didn't have any bad 5 or 6s. So that's right. That's what you need. But I just want, before we thank the great Bill Neofus, I just wanted to throw out there. I also have been very impressed because he kind of slowed down a little bit, but he's back. Blake Lizotte.
Yeah. Yep.
I think is playing some real good hockey, and I think it looks like he wants to be on this team next year.
He almost made the thumbnail tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he scored the game winner in Dallas. He almost scored one tonight. No, I think if you put him with competent fourth line guys, like he's a pretty nice player. He can really skate. No, I like what he brings. That's a good call.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And yeah, like I said, I mean, seriously, he almost made the thumbnail. I literally artistically couldn't make it work. So sorry, Blake. That's why you're not in the thumbnail with Sid. But I just posted up one comment there. Last thing before we move on to Ovi and all that stuff. Jari or Ned next year. And, obviously if somebody's going to take Jari, that'd be great. But I had this thought driving earlier today, because this is what I do as a Yinzer, driving around, running errands and thinking about who's going to be our backup goaltender next year. I think it sounds like Miroshov is gonna stay in their plan, at least, is to have him in Wilkes-Barre for the whole season and then bring him up. But maybe he plays his way into a position. But we have Bloomquist, but I don't think you can't bring Jari and Ned back together, right?
I'd be surprised. I saw Marcy just asked a question about the goaltenders for next year, Bloomquist or Miroshov, and obviously they're both in the mix. Miroshov, I would say the odds are he starts in Wilkes-Barre next season. I don't know that he'll be there all season. I think he'll make his NHL debut at some point next season, whether that's in October or April or sometime in between. That remains to be seen. I really think when he's ready, they're not going to mess around and they're going to give him his chance. Bloomquist is the interesting one. He had a great first few games at the NHL level, and frankly, he wasn't very good after that. I don't know how talented he is. I'm not saying he stinks or anything, but I don't know that he's going to be some standout NHL goalie. Did we lose Joe, by the way?
Joe,
No,
can you hear us?
I'm listening.
Oh, Joe's just listening. All right. Well, as long as we didn't
No, I
lose
went
Joe.
out. What happened?
Your camera's off.
Oh,
I like seeing Joe's handsome face when I talk. But listen, no. So they have a lot of goaltending depth. I mean, Jari's the interesting one, really, in all of this. And I don't think Kyle wants to buy him out. I don't think he sees a lot of point in doing that right now, which I understand. But yeah, I don't think Penguins fans are going to be very happy if it's Jari and Nedeljkovic on October 7th when the season opens. And frankly, I understand. I don't know that would be in anybody's best interests.
In my thought too, like to kind of follow up on what I want to hear what both you think, but I'm sitting there driving along today and I'm thinking, I actually don't think Tristan Jari as a backup is a bad thing. Like he might be good in a situation where he's not the guy. You know what I mean? Like he's got talent. Like I don't know. It's just that was bouncing around in my head today.
Maybe. And I mean, listen, the problem with that is then you're paying a backup almost $5.5 million a year, which just from a cost management standpoint isn't ideal. But no, if there was a 1-1A situation where maybe it is Jari and Miroshov's not making any money, so you're still only paying your goalies around $6 million a year, that's fine. And the fact is, like, every team has guys who are overpaid or who aren't paid properly, and that's okay. The whole point is to get them to play better. And Jari, I mean, to his credit, Corey, he's been much better since he's been recalled. And again, like I said, I'm not defending him. He's been terrible this season. But he's also been put in a terribly difficult spot behind arguably the worst defensive team in the league. So that's going to be difficult for any goaltender to deal with. Nedeljkovic, he is what he is. He's an okay backup. That's him. And he, again, hasn't had a very good season. The fact that they've both been so bad statistically just tells me that some of the blame needs to go to their teammates. And I think it's a pretty simple thing. We talk about is Jari movable and what an interesting debate and interesting conversation that is. I don't know if he is or not. I don't know how movable Ned is.
Yeah.
Ned still makes a little bit of money, and you can get backup goalies, for pretty cheap more times than not. I don't know with 1 year left on his deal that they're going to be much of a market for him.
That was my thought exactly. This was the thing holding me back from saying, like, yeah, just go with Jari.
Right.
Well, like, what are you going to do with Ned? Like, you're not going to buy him out. You know what I mean? You're not going to.
And if they can trade Jari this summer, I'm sure they will. I'm sure Kyle will attempt to do that. Maybe even throw in the sweetener of a couple of draft picks to get somebody to take him. If you have to keep a little bit of the money, fine. Because I do think there's just been trust lost between the Penguins front office and the coaching staff and Jari. I don't think all of that trust is coming back ever. Yeah. Like even if Jari rebounds and has a couple of decent regular seasons, and okay, so maybe say he's decent next season and the Penguins make the playoffs, you really going to trust him in game 1 against the Devils?
No.
Give
me Miroshov all day in that situation.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem with Jari. Even if we know he can play well in the regular season, even if he gets that back, he's going to be 30 years old soon. Do you trust him at this stage? I don't. He just screams for a guy who could use a change of scenery.
What? Yeah, No, that's a really good point, and I feel like where he would be good in the playoffs. This is going to sound like a massive insult, but oh God, who was the backup goalie in 2009? Uh,
Oh God, the French guy. Oh God, I can't remember his name now. That's
like
awful. Showing my
yeah,
age.
somebody in the comments if you can
He
remember who
barely
the
ever
backup
played.
goalie in 2009. Um, but this is really funny to like compare this to Jari, but I'll never forget when we were getting blown out in Game 5 in Detroit, and it was like 5-0, and they pulled Fleury. And I remember Garin. Was it Garin? Garon? Garon?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Sebastian Garon. Okay. So when they put him in the third period, I was sitting there and I said to my family, I said, I feel like him not giving up a goal this period goes a long way towards us winning the Stanley Cup. Because if it just snowballs and it's like 8-9-0, like it's gonna be bad. And like
Uh-huh.
this is a really important period, and he didn't give up a goal. And Matthew Garon, thank you, Alex, for throwing that out there.
Yes.
And Jari, we've talked about and we joke about it all the time. Jari could be the perfect guy in that scenario because nobody's better than Tristan Jari when you're already getting blown out. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's just my throwback and trying to help Tristan here. But well, hey, Joe, I think is trying to get back in, so we'll get him back in here shortly. He might have an internet or a phone issue or a computer issue, whatever it is.
Listen, Joe's in Florida. Weird shit happens in Florida. It's okay.
You've heard about Florida men, so but before we go on, we're going to wax a little poetically about Alexander Ovechkin, and if there's any Caps fans seeing this title and thinking, oh, it's not greater than Alex, relax. We're going to give him his flowers. But first, Mr. Bill Neofis, he had to have enjoyed that hat trick yesterday, did he not?
Yeah, Bill did. I don't think Bill enjoyed today. There's Joe. I don't think our great sponsor, Bill, enjoyed today as much because Wayne Gretzky and Alex Ovechkin are absolutely two of his least favorite athletes of all time. And they've certainly been dominating the headlines. I can't wait to talk about Gretzky, like giving a speech that was 5 minutes longer than Ovechkin's. It was really uncomfortable during the game today. But yeah, real quick note from our sponsor as Bill's been reminding us, and I didn't know this, but April is Distracted Driver Awareness Month, and it happens all the time. Like, how often are you driving and you look and somebody's on their phone, like clearly not paying attention? We've all done it. I've gotten a ticket for it. I'm not innocent in all of this, but just as a reminder from him, and he's right. It can always wait. People die every day because of it. It's an epidemic in our country. So he just reminds everyone: put your phone on do not disturb. Whatever you have to do when you're driving, for God's sake, pay attention to the road. And he's absolutely right. Bill Neofis, a wonderful human being, as is everybody at Neofis Insurance. Give them a call. They will take care of all of your insurance needs, whatever you need. They're located very conveniently close to Ross Park Mall in the North Hills. Give them a visit, give them a call, whatever. I'm telling you, once you talk with Bill, you'll be like, yeah, he's a really great guy. I feel good about doing business with this guy. So 412-364-3388. Bill Neofis, tell him we sent you.
Thank you, Bill. So for Bill's least favorite segment, let's talk about it. Alexander Ovechkin, unbelievable achievement. Something that I certainly never thought was going to be taken down.
Yeah.
And it's just this weird feeling. Like there was a lot of hatred between the Crosby and Ovechkin side. Not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure they didn't necessarily like each other when they were younger, but the fan bases. I mean, it was pretty heated, and now there's just a ton of respect. And I never thought I'd see the day that this record would go down. That Sid would have a video congratulating his friend, and all that. But it was just it was a wonderful thing to see. It was one of those things like, I hope everyone else was watching it live. I, made sure my kids were watching. I'm like, guys, look, this is like, if I was alive when Henry Aaron broke the record, like my dad would have woke me up and been like, watch this. And such an OV celebration, by the way. Like he's always a great celebrator. It goes into the dive. But just thoughts before we get into the whole debacle with Wayne Gretzky. Your thoughts on the grade 8 passing 99.
I give him so much credit. There's never been anyone quite like Ovechkin. Like I love watching him play in person. He is such of a star. Like he has. I'm not comparing him to Mario, but he's got that Mario thing where when he's on the ice, like you always know it, and you always notice him because he looks different than everyone else, and he moves a little differently than everyone else. The consistency, the ability to always stay healthy, the durability, it's incredible. And I thought he was pretty much washed up after last year, and I was wrong. He's got like what 42 goals in like 60 games. It's unbelievable what he's doing this season. And I was in the Penguins locker room in Chicago just a couple of hours ago after the game. I did not ask anybody one question about that god awful hockey game. But I sat down with Gino and I talked with him for a couple of minutes. Gino usually doesn't like to talk to the media after games. It's just not comfortable for him. He wanted to talk about Ovi. It was really important for him. And they actually congratulated Ovi and showed the video of the goal during the first TV timeout. And Gino was actually sitting on the Penguins bench, like actually on the end boards. And he had his eyes glued on the screen the whole time watching. He could tell it meant something, I think, to him. And he said afterwards, what that meant to his country for a Russian to break Wayne Gretzky's record, what a big deal it was. And he said he's going to give him a call the next day or two when things have settled down for him a little bit. Those two are pretty close. And these three guys, Sid and Gino and Ovi, they're indelibly bonded. We're always going to think of the other guys when we talk about them. And for Sid also to take the time to text Ovi before the game and wish him good luck, he wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. I really believe that. But their relationship has thawed to the point that I think they're actually consider themselves friends now. And we saw that with Magic and Bird, right? They used to hate each other, Joe, in the 80s. And then by the end of the 80s and early 90s, they kind of became friends after all of that. And I think we've seen that with these two.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you guys caught Gino's tribute video. I mean, it was like 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
It was an incredible, heartfelt moment for him. And I think it is a big deal for the Russians, and it's a big deal for Gino to acknowledge it. And it's great for Ovechkin. I've been pro Ovechkin for a long time, and I think it was fantastic. And when you consider the way he plays a violent game, I mean, he's everything you want in a hockey player. And I'm so glad he got to do it in his office. And I'm glad he didn't just, wheeze into it and have like 13 goals this year and then 9 goals and then 3 goals. He did it he did his team is winning. They're in top of the division. I think it's just fantastic for everybody involved.
And I love that he didn't want to do it into the empty net. Good for him. And I talked with Sid after the game in Dallas, and I didn't even bring it up. Sid talked about it. We talked about it for a while. Then afterwards, Sid looked at me and he goes, he said, I really respect that he didn't want to do it into the empty net. That's pretty cool. Because he could have certainly on Friday night against the Blackhawks. The great players like him, they don't miss the empty net when they get a shot at it. As we know, growing up watching 66, we know the great players, they don't miss. But Ovi wanted to do it against a goaltender, and he did it. It was a classic Ovechkin goal, a classic celebration. I'm glad John Carlson didn't sever Ovi's left wrist. He almost did. I tweeted about this. Watch the replay. Ovi was sliding, and Carlson was so excited. Like, Ovi literally moved his hand at the last second, and you saw his skate blade coming at his wrist. We didn't need that. But no, I mean, listen, I know Penguins fans are some out there that hate Ovechkin. I get it. And I bristle. I've kind of been quiet about this on social media. I don't want to take anything away from Ovi. I don't. I have nothing but respect for him. You hear people say, "Oh, he's the greatest goal scorer of all time." Like, no, he's not. I'm sorry, he's not. He's not a better goal scorer than Mario was. But I don't want to get into that now. But there's a time and a place for that. But this is his moment, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. He's one of the greatest stars of all time. One of the greatest box office attractions the game has ever seen. And what Sid and Ovi did, like, the game was in a bad place 20 years ago, guys. It wasn't on national TV very often. It wasn't good. And those two have made the game so much better, and they're still going great all these years later. It's just been incredible.
That is the Bird Magic comparison completely.
Yeah.
Is how they saved the league.
Yeah.
Sid and Ovi. What's interesting is someone did point out, and it wasn't us, it wasn't even Penguin media or Pittsburgh media, of just what truly accomplished how many goals Mario had in the amount of games he played. And I remember hearing Gretzky kind of when the Gretzky-Lemieux rivalry thawed, how he would always say, well, if Mario wasn't injured and didn't have cancer, he would have broke all my records.
Right.
You could always hear Wayne say that, which was very gracious of him, I thought.
It is.
Yeah.
There's
somebody that did the math one time. If even with a decline curve on his production, Mario would have had like 1,100 goals. Like it would have been insane.
Well, and it's not a knock on Ovechkin. It's not, because like I said, he's paid to score goals and he does it really well. But Mario and Gretzky, you need to remember, especially Gretzky, and even Mario to some extent, they were both like past first players. Like they were, there are only 4 players in the top 50 goals, the most goals scored in NHL history. Only 4 of those 50 guys have more than 1,000 assists. It's Lemieux and Gretzky and Crosby and Marcel Dion. That's it. So my point is, talking about Lemieux and Gretzky, how many goals could they have scored if played the way Ovi plays? I mean, really, they both literally pass up on probably hundreds of goals because they were busy setting up teammates as well. But that is something we have to remember.
I will say this though, and no one loves Mario more than me. Ovechkin just plays a different game. I mean, the physicality that he brought for a decade is what makes this incredible. Is like you can't ask for now. I think the biggest difference, as far as if you're just comparing, like putting pedestals and Mount Rushmores, is Ovi's a winger, so it's just a little bit easier of a position. But if you talk about who brought physicality and hits and goal scoring, which is kind of what everyone loves about hockey, no one did it better than Ovechkin.
No, you're right. And I think he's like number 2 or 3 all time in body checks now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since they've been keeping track of it. No, that's the thing.
He's approaching Zach Aston Reese.
When I think of Ovechkin, I think of the young Ovechkin who not only was scoring 50 or 60 goals a year, but was beating the shit out of defensemen all game. Like there's never been a player like that. That's what made him unique. It wasn't even the goals. Yeah. It was the fear that he put into defensemen. He doesn't play that. He can't skate that well anymore, where that he can really do that as much. But when he was young, when he could play that way, no, there's never been anything like it. So I don't want to discredit him at all. Do I think he's the greatest goal scorer of all time? No, I don't. But that doesn't mean he's not the most accomplished goal scorer of all time, because he is. The numbers say that he is. He might score 1,000 if he sticks around 2 or 3 more years. Honestly, wouldn't shock me. He does things his own way. He's a singular star, and winning the cup in 2018 that changed his legacy a lot. He had to do that, and he did, and he's top 10 all time, no question. And we're going to miss him when he's gone. Such of a unique personality, and it's to the point now with the Penguins and Capitals. I would hope the fans of each team can kind of appreciate the other side now. Like I know a lot of Penguins fans are like, you know what? Ovi's great. Like it's been awesome watching him play for 20 years, and I'm sure they feel the same about Crosby. That's a pretty cool thing. You don't see that very often for this.
You're not going to get that in Philly, that's for sure.
Well, there are some begrudging Flyer fans that will admit that Crosby is great. It's becoming more and more apparent. Like
it is.
You just can't. I mean, it's pig-headed and as stubborn and as foolish as most of them are. They just can't deny the fact that Crosby is incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. And it's listen. I think things changed too with Sid and Ovi when the Capitals finally beat the Penguins in 2018. Like I think that had to happen for the Capitals. And from that point on, there's been more of a peaceful atmosphere between the two teams. Because until then, they just couldn't beat the Penguins. And there was that hatred there. And I'll never forget being in the Capitals locker room about 10 minutes after that series ended. I've never heard a team throw more compliments at another team than the Capitals did toward the Penguins. But they had to beat them. And then all of a sudden, they're all like, yeah, they're really great. Like, we respect them. Like they couldn't say it until they beat them. And once they did, I think that changed. I really think that changed the relationship between Crosby and Ovechkin. I think Ovi just had to beat him once. And then all of a sudden, I think he showed Crosby a side of his personality that maybe Sid hadn't seen before, and they became friends.
Well, is Dominic Simone's name on the cup as a capital? Because he gave it to him as a stupid penalty.
Yeah, he certainly did.
I'll set you up for that one, Joe.
Right on the tee. Right.
Yeah, talking about great assists back in the day. You know, I mean, Josh could have shot that one in, but he just laid it out for
right
Joe
on the
to
ladies'
hammer it home.
tees.
Yeah. And now, what did you guys think of the whole debacle? You know, because I mean, it did. Like, I had a friend that responded on Twitter, like he was like, oh, this is ridiculous, stopping the whole game. And I was like, I'm actually okay with stopping the game. I'm not okay with Wayne Gretzky getting 5 minutes on a national stage to talk about himself and soak the limelight in just a little bit more, because he's Wayne Gretzky, and we all have to bow down and kiss the ring. I mean, I appreciate that he was there to. He's been very cordial about the record being given up and everything, but there's also a little bit of attention hogging there, was there not?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't see it? Gretzky went on for like 5 minutes. Like, it was, Josh, you said, I mean, it was probably longer than Ovi spoke.
Oh, it was. Gretzky's in a tough spot there, right? Because it was good of him to be there and to speak. And Gretzky is a great ambassador for the sport. I don't think anybody would question that. His speech, however, he just went into like politician mode. And no, I don't mean to bring up politics and Gretzky, because I'm aware of who he was sitting in the booth with, and I don't care about that. I really don't. But Gretzky at one point like congratulated every team in the National Hockey League. He said, I want to congratulate every organization for the way the game has grown. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like,
he congratulated the referees.
And then he congratulated the refs and the linesmen. Like Wayne, like, turn it down a notch, man. You don't need to be in like politician mode here. Just Ovi, you're great. Congratulations to you and your family. Instead, he's talking, when I broke Gordy Hall's record, and Gordy showed up, and I just want to let everyone know Gordy's the greatest player of all time. Just shut up, Wayne. Wayne's always been very good at the false modesty. That's a very big strong suit of his, and you can kind of tell by if I may judge his body language, there's no way he was actually enjoying this event. Like, there's no way he ever thought that record would go down. So I found it. Like, it was okay, but it was a little much and a little disingenuous toward the end, I thought.
Yeah, he felt like the drunk uncle that grabs the microphone during the speeches at the wedding, and everybody's like, well, like, all right, let's hope this goes like 30 seconds and then it's over. And then it just kept going. You're like, okay, can somebody get the microphone, from Uncle Wayne? Like, we got to get this over with.
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable, in my opinion. And Gary Bettman really didn't need to speak at all either. I don't know why Gary needs to include himself in those events. There was no need for Gary Bettman to be on the ice.
No.
None. And it just, typical NHL.
Yeah, like, I mean, honestly, go ahead.
In general, like, it was a cool event. I'm glad they stopped the game. Like, some people were bitching about that. No, they should have stopped the game. In our lifetime, we'll never see that record broken again, probably. They should have stopped the game. But it should have been more about Ovechkin and his family and nobody else.
Like, I think, you bring his family down. If you want to, like, put a little thing on the ice where they can come out and take a picture with them, and like give Ovechkin a microphone and let him go. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And like take some pictures. Boom. Like then it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 minutes. I don't know, 10 minutes at most.
I don't even care how long it took. I just didn't need to hear Wayne Gretzky talk for 5 minutes. I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah. Although we did get to see Gary Bettman booed on a national stage, and every chance we get for that, I'm okay with.
He likes
why do you not like Gary Bettman? He literally helped save the Penguins, Corey. And if there was no salary cap, it'd be like your shitty Pirates.
Yeah. I just.
No, I don't understand it. If you like live in Toronto and you want to hate them, you want to hate Gary Bettman because you want to, we want to spend $400 million and still never win a cup. And I get that. Or if you wish there was only 20 teams and 18 of them were all in Canada, I get that. But if you're an American, and especially if you're a small market American team, you should be licking Gary Bettman's shoes.
No, so I'm very thankful for the salary cap and everything, and I think that was born more out of financial necessity. Like he was in pure businessman mode, and it was like, we have to do this, or the organization, like the league, doesn't survive. Because unlike unlike other sports, they're so dependent on ticket revenue that they had to keep they had to keep the small markets. But on my beef with him is that he has not put a team back in Quebec, and it's just to me it's a travesty that the Nordiques don't exist. And
should the NBA put a team back in Schenectady? It's 2025, Corey.
I mean,
you're blaming a guy for not for trying to rewrite it. I mean, they're never going to get a team back. They're a small market in Canada. Winnipeg's going to go in the next 5 years.
Yeah. No, I mean, now economically it won't work.
They have the third worst attendance. They have the best team in hockey, and they're in Canada.
I understand why fans don't like Bettman, and I think it's because of the work stoppages under his reign, and I get that. I don't really care what people feel about Bettman, but it's always a distraction when he's around because he's going to get booed, and it's going to be a big theater, and it just distracts from what's important, I think, whenever he's on the ice. He's going to get booed. He does his little dorky thing where he smiles and waves when people boo him. It's just obnoxious. Like, it's just arrogant.
Right.
That's why I don't hate the guy. I don't think everything's been bad under his reign, but he doesn't need to be on the ice in those moments, in my opinion.
But it turns like NHL fans into like stupid wrestling fans.
Right.
They have to oh, we're gonna boo Batman, just like they have to yell at some stupid state saying because some fake wrestler did something. It just makes a mockery of the whole thing.
Yes, it just doesn't need to happen. So
like at the draft, okay, the draft boom once. But to boom on like Ovechkin's moment, even
when your team's just won the Stanley Cup at home and people still boom when he walks on the ice.
That's what killed. That's the funny. I mean, maybe it's my I enjoy uncomfortable things like that. I enjoy some of the for example, the 2009 Cup. I call that the Schadenfreude Cup because we won every series on the road. Right. And I love to see the misery of the fans in the background. So I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but
yeah, because I'd rather win it at home.
Oh, I mean, you're right. I like winning at home, but there's a guy. If you go back and watch when Sid buries the empty netter in Game 6 against the Flyers, there is a Flyers fan that literally front row, right behind the net, kicks the boards and gets up and walks out, and that is my Super Bowl. That's to me, I want to print out of that guy. I want to carry it around. That's what I live for when it comes to the sport. So, but that's maybe me. So yeah, all in all though, I mean, great of Ovechkin, great for him. I'm very happy that we got that. And also now maybe the ticket prices for the final game will come down.
There might just be 5,000 empty seats now.
Yeah.
All the Capitals fans aren't going to show.
Yeah. So I made a promise to my nephew to take him to that game. And then all of a sudden the ticket price would go, and I was like, oh, crap. Anyways, yeah, no, it won't happen here. And I think that's a good thing. I know that on DVE, Prizzuto wanted it to happen here, but I kind of agreed. I think it was Randy or Crawford were talking about, I don't want the Penguins and Joe.
No, it was me.
Yeah, that's right. It was
for
you
3 weeks in a row. Yeah.
Every
you were morning. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, you don't want to be on the highlight reel. You know what I mean? It's just you don't want to be that. And also thank you for the Penguins for shutting out Gretzky in his final game. If it was not for that Jaromir Jagr led team, he would have scored another goal maybe. And we would have had to wait another day. But yeah, the good old sending Wayne out in style and with a whimper. So anyways, one thing I wanted to get to you guys, ask you guys, I mean, we kind of do this little thing now where at the end kind of bring up a little question, sometimes it's a big thing about the league and whatnot. But one of the thoughts that was going through my head this week was the Civic Arena in general. I mean, I've mentioned to you guys before, but my one son is on a real kick of watching the old VHSs that are on YouTube. So I'm seeing a ton of Civic Arena stuff. And all I can think about when I see the Civic Arena, one of the first things I think about is the smell of the building and the smell of jalapenos. So not Mellon Arena or not Civic Arena, favorite memory, all that kind of stuff. What do you remember of the Civic Arena that you like miss. You know what I mean? When you walk into PPG and you're like, it doesn't have that. It doesn't have that smell. It doesn't have that feel. Anything jumped to mind.
Wow. Well, I mean, the Igloo had character for days, far more than PPG. The first thing I thought of when you said that, and this is nothing against the fans who go there now, it was a different kind of fan at the Mellon, especially in the early and mid 90s. It was more of a blue collar crowd. I miss those days. I still remember first time I ever went to a game was 1986. I was 6 years old. And I remember going to games as a kid, like seeing people smoke on the concourses, and like actual fans like had their hard hats on from work. Like you don't see that anymore. It's a really wealthy white collar crowd who goes to games now for the most part. I miss the fans. I miss the smells. I would say the Igloo smelled like nacho cheese and cigarette smoke more than anything else. And it was a glorious smell. It just was. Yeah. I think it was a dump, but it was our dump. And I absolutely do miss that place, Joe.
You're absolutely right about the cigarette smoke and the smoking patio, or the one door you can walk out and smoke.
Oh, yeah.
I remember took advantage of that a few times. And definitely the smell like nachos. But I think the one thing I missed the most was the old bucket of nachos. Because even when Three Rivers went to the hole, it's divided and your little cheese in the corner. And Mellon Arena still had the big bowl and all the cheeses on top and all the jalapenos on top. And you're going to make a mess no matter what. And that was my favorite thing to get. I always used to love getting the nachos at the Civic Arena. That's probably what it meant. And I just missed the orange seats with the ripped shredding. Because they were way more comfortable than how close the seats are at the new place. There's just more room.
I agree with that. I miss everything about that place. My first year on the beat actually was the final season in the Mellon, and it was such of a dump underneath on the locker room level. You can't imagine how awful it was, especially the visitors' locker room. It smelled terrible, but like I don't know. I just loved it. I loved everything about it, but more than anything, just the atmosphere. It was just it was the way it was built, right? It trapped all that noise and made for kind of an intimidating environment for the opposing team. And all the new buildings are kind of the same in that way. They're all nice. They're all palaces. They're very pretty, and that's cool. But you certainly do lose a little bit of that element. I think it's like that in all sports.
It literally took Mike Sullivan to make PPG Arena a home ice advantage.
Yeah.
How many game sevens in playoffs did we lose until Sully became the coach? It was like we couldn't win a big game at PPG Arena, or was it called Consell?
No, you're right.
It took forever. It took forever for that to become home. Now it's like home, but for a long time it was just like, you just yearn for the arena.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And we see that with a lot of the new buildings. And listen, PPG is a very nice place. It's certainly one of the 10 nicest buildings in the league. It's held up pretty well in its first 14 or 15 years, whatever it's been. But yeah, and we all romanticize about the buildings of our youth a little bit. I miss Three Rivers, even though it was a dump. It was still a better football stadium than Heinz Field ever was.
Absolutely. The other thing too is I think you kind of hinted at it, but in the arena, first of all, not everyone's wearing a $300 jersey of their favorite player. Like I love watching the old videos when no one's wearing any gear.
Yeah, everyone's wearing like sweatshirts.
Everyone everyone just comes as themselves. And also, 5,000 kids can't scream as loud as 500 drunk steelworkers. It was just so much louder. Beer was cheaper. And it was just louder, people, working class people screaming.
Yeah.
The building just rocked.
It was. Go back and for all you young people watching, may I suggest a couple of goals. Go back and watch when Mario scored the game winner in Game 1 against the Blackhawks in '92. Look at the crowd. Like just look at the crowd. Breathe it in. That goal, and also Mario's famous goal against the Flyers in the '89 playoffs when he picked Ron Hextall's pocket and scored his fourth goal of the first period. Watch the way the crowd reacted and tell me if you've seen a crowd pop like that in the last 10 years. You haven't. Even when Chris Kunitz scores in double overtime at Game 7, the crowd didn't pop for that the way it did back at the Igloo in those days.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a different feel, and I miss it. I mean, I have spent way more time there than a lot of people just because I was an usher there in college, as you guys know. And but I'll throw this out there as the last thing. Favorite seat, and mine has to be my main usher section with E14 in the balcony, and I got to be right at the top of the lower end. If I could sit anywhere, it would be behind the double attack net in the lower E balcony. It's like one of the best seats in sports I've ever seen.
I always call it video game cam, where it's like you're playing the video game, you're hanging right over the goaltender. I love those seats. I didn't like sitting close to the glass at the Mellon. I always like being in like C or D level. Like if you were on the blue lines or the red line, I always thought those were actually the perfect seats for hockey. But no, it's hard to go against those balcony seats, Corey. They were one of a kind.
Yeah, and being that's the only seats I could afford of it. 99% of the time, that's where I was at anyway.
Yeah, me too.
Only like 3 times I think I ever had good seats. Once they got good, pre-Mario and Rod Buska's era, you could just get the cheap seats and walk down.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and
good point by Alex there. Did you see Alex just texted tweeted at us like you could get student rush tickets back then? So there were a lot more college kids in the building making it loud. Absolutely.
And it was the real student rush, not this like text in and you'll get a text that lets you know you got a ticket. Like,
right?
Come on, like if the Pens, the Penguins need to do something to really this is their chance to galvanize the new fan base, and they need to make it organic again. You know what I mean? Like have Rucker McGroarty and Ville Koivunen deliver pizzas to college kids waiting on Fifth Avenue. Like Colby did back in the day.
I think it is organic. I think just from when I've been there recently, and I just think watching on television and the hype, you may be cutting off, the Steeler fans. Oh, I was hockey, when Steeler camp is over, when there's nothing to watch on TV anymore. It's like I think let those people disappear until there's the Stanley Cup run again. But I think there's more and more natural Penguin fans every year.
Yeah. And I will say it wasn't near the level of like a playoff pop or anything like that. But Josh, you were there too. So when Sid scored that overtime winner, like that arena popped for a regular season game more than it has in a long time. And I think it's the people that are there. We've talked about that a lot. It's the people that are, going on SeatGeek and like, oh, hey, I can get in the game for $25. Boom. Like,
the best part of the Penguins being out of the playoff chase is that the ticket prices go way down and you get people in that building who have never been there before, who are typically can't afford to go, and they freaking love the Penguins. And they just appreciate getting to see Crosby and Malkin play. And it's been a great atmosphere the last month. It really has.
Yeah. So I recommend anyone, if you're listening, look Tuesday night against Chicago. I think tickets are like $23 on the resale sites. So do yourself a favor. Get down there and
I'll come hang out during the intermissions. We'll tell inappropriate stories that we can't tell on the podcast. It'll be great. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah. Tweet at Josh and say where are we meeting?
Yeah, it's fine.
Where are we meeting on the console? So
I want to thank all the fans for listening and watching. I'm experiencing once again extreme technical difficulties. So I will talk to you guys soon. I think my computer died. For real, and now my phone is on 1%. So
okay, yeah.
Godspeed, Joe.
Thank you, everybody. Talk to you guys soon. Let's go Pens.
Yeah, let's go Pens, and we'll see where we end up this week. Let's add a couple more goals to Sid's tally there. All right, guys, that'll do it for us on Two for Talking, and we will talk to you next week.